We all know the Bermuda Triangle. That, quicksand, bottomless pits, these are all things that we were told in our childhood that we would experience frequently and yet almost never do. But have you heard of the Lake Michigan Triangle? Let's get spooky. Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny here, and we have another spooky, disturbing story for you today. Before we get into the story, make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Make sure that you like and share this video. Share this video with your waiter or your bartender. Say, hey, Kenny's got a story about the Lake Michigan Triangle. Have you heard of it? Check this out. I'd really appreciate that and really help out the channel. Lake Michigan is the third largest of the Great Lakes. There is a phenomenon that has baffled researchers and paranormal enthusiasts for a long time. Within Lake Michigan, there is a region known as the Lake Michigan Triangle, which is an area that has had tales of disappearances, unexplained shipwrecks, and other strange phenomena, including aliens. The Lake Michigan Triangle, which is sometimes referred to as the Michigan Triangle, is typically defined by an area between Ludington and Benton Harbor in Michigan and Manitowoc, Wisconsin. So it misses Chicago almost entirely. No, it misses Chicago completely, actually. While the origins of the triangle are unclear, the triangle's notoriety stems from a series of unexplained incidents that have occurred within its boundaries. The earliest incident dates back to 1679 with the disappearance of the French sailing ship Le Griffon and her crew. The Griffon was carrying a valuable cargo of furs and vanished without a trace. Some believe that the ship was sunk during a violent storm. Others believe more sinister theories, such as piracy, or sabotage, or aliens. The Griffon isn't the only notable incident to occur in the Lake Michigan Triangle. There have been a significant amount of shipwrecks, people disappearing, as well as airplanes vanishing without a trace, UFO sightings, and strange lights in the sky. All of these occurrences have built the Lake Michigan Triangle lore. It's important to note, however, that many of these incidents occur in high traffic areas of Lake Michigan, and it's likely that the frequency of these occurrences are probably related to the volume of traffic rather than any paranormal activity. Like the Bermuda Triangle, the Lake Michigan Triangle may not have anything paranormal to do with it at all. It just happens to be an area of high traffic. And because of that high traffic, a more significant amount of strange occurrences have happened. However, the stories of the Lake Michigan Triangle are fascinating and spooky. And that's what you're here for. The Thomas Hume. The disappearance of the Thomas Hume in the Lake Michigan Triangle is a particularly intriguing case. For over a century, this schooner and lumber vessel that disappeared without a trace has been the subject of speculation and rumors. Many years later, the Thomas Hume was finally rediscovered. The Thomas Hume began its life as the H.C. Albrecht, a two-masted schooner built in Manitowoc, Wisconsin in 1870. It was named after its first owner, Captain Harry C. Albrecht, and the vessel measured 132 feet in length with a 26-foot beam. In 1876, ownership transferred to Captain Welch of Chicago, and a year later it was acquired by Charles Hackey, a prominent lumber baron, and business partner of Thomas Hume of Muskegon, Michigan. Under the new ownership, H.C. Albrecht underwent significant modifications. Its deck was replaced, the framing strengthened, and a third mast was added to enhance its cargo carrying capacity. In 1883, the vessel was renamed the Thomas Hume in honor of Hackley's partner. The schooner was primarily employed in the bustling lumber trade, transporting lumber from Muskegon to Chicago across Lake Michigan. As part of the lore, sometime during the summer of 1890, a bottle washed ashore containing a faded note. A message in a bottle. The note claimed to be from someone aboard the Thomas Hume, stating they were sailing the Chicago to New Buffalo route and that the ship would not hold out much longer. At the time, this was dismissed as a hoax, as the Thomas Hume typically sailed between Chicago and Muskegon. However, the eventual discovery of the wreck near the Chicago-New Buffalo route adds some credibility to this message in a bottle, this evidence. The owners of the Thomas Hume initially found it difficult to believe the vessel could be overcome by rough waters. This disbelief underscores the unexpected nature of the disappearance. The Rouse Simmons, which had sailed alongside the Thomas Hume, returned to Chicago expecting to find the Thomas Hume at the dock in Muskegon, only to realize it had vanished. The Thomas Hume disappeared on Lake Michigan. The specific location is unknown, but is believed to be somewhere in the southern portion of the lake. The weather conditions at the time were stormy, with a squall reported in the area. A squall. That's a bad storm. Squalls are characterized by their sudden onset and intensity and pose significant threats to sailing vessels, which makes sense because they use the wind to be propelled, right? Like the Thomas Hume, which were designed for cargo transport rather than navigating severe weather. When the Thomas Hume failed to arrive in Muskegon, its owners, Charles Hackley and Thomas Hume, initiated a search effort. They dispatched Captain Seth Lee to scour Lake Michigan for any sign of the missing schooner. Despite extensive searches, no wreckage or debris were found. The 7 crew members were presumed lost, and the company had to absorb significant financial loss as the ship was uninsured. Bad move by the company. The owners continued their efforts to locate the Thomas Hume, even offering a substantial reward for any information leading to its discovery. However, the reward was never claimed, and the mystery of the Thomas Hume's disappearance continued. Now, there are a few theories as to what happened to the Thomas Hume. One theory is that the crew of the Thomas Hume staged a mutiny, potentially overpowering Captain Albertson, and then sailed off with the vessel under a new identity. They could have repainted the schooner and changed its name to avoid detection. There is not much evidence supporting this theory. And it's crazy to think that this is even a possibility, that you could just repaint a boat, sail it somewhere else, and be like, oh yeah, hey guys, what happened? Oh yeah, Thomas Hume, don't know him. Another theory is that the Thomas Hume was accidentally struck and sunk by a larger freighter. And perhaps the freighter's captain and crew may have been sworn to secrecy and conceal the collision. However, when the Thomas Hume was rediscovered, it was relatively intact, so that pushes against this theory, as a collision would probably have caused more extensive damage. The most widely accepted explanation is that the Thomas Hume was overwhelmed by the storm that forced the Rouse Simmons to turn back. The schooner may have capsized or sunk in the rough seas and strong winds, and this theory is supported by the weather conditions at the time and the general hazards of sailing on Lake Michigan. After more than a century, the Thomas Hume was rediscovered in 2006. Taras Lysenko, a diver with A&T Recovery, stumbled upon an almost perfectly intact shipwreck in the southern part of Lake Michigan while searching for a lost United States Navy aircraft. The vessel was remarkably preserved because of its location in deep water, far from the shore, and therefore was not disturbed by human activity or forces of nature. After the discovery, a partnership was formed between A&T Recovery and the Michigan Shipwreck Research Association to conduct a thorough survey of the wreck. In 2010, a team of divers meticulously documented the shipwreck, capturing photos and videos. The survey confirmed the vessel's identity as a long-lost Thomas Hume. This incredible rediscovery provided a closure to a century-old mystery and offered valuable insights into shipbuilding techniques and maritime practices of the late 19th century. The conclusion, after the rediscovery, was that the ship indeed was overpowered by the storm and sank. The Rosabelle incident. In 1921, the Rosabelle, which was also a schooner, vanished on Lake Michigan. The Rosabelle was a wooden schooner that was constructed in 1863 at the Leonard H. Boole shipyard in Milwaukee. It cost approximately $4,500 to be built It measured 87 feet in length and had 2 masts, and the ship was a common sight in the Great Lakes during that area. For many years, the Rosabelle served as a workhorse of the Great Lakes, transporting cargo and supplies across the often treacherous waters. Her design and her crew allowed her to navigate the challenges of the Great Lakes shipping and made her an important vessel in the region's growth and trade. In 1919, the Rosabelle came under the ownership of the House of David, a religious community in Benton Harbor, Michigan. This religious community was known for communal living and adherence to specific religious practices, and it acquired the Rosabelle to transport essential supplies to their settlement on High Island. The ship became a very important part of the community, ensuring the delivery of goods and maintaining its connection to the mainland. Kind of sounds like a cult to me. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. On October 30th, 1921, the Rosabelle embarked on what would be its final journey. It was carrying a whole bunch of lumber. It departed High Island, heading towards Benton Harbor. As the schooner sailed eastward across Lake Michigan, a fierce storm gathered strength, and the Rosabelle was caught in the grip of the storm and was no match for the waves and winds. Days later, on November 2nd, 1921, the Rosabelle was found capsized and adrift 42 miles east of Milwaukee. The vessel was discovered upside down with no signs of life on board. A search of the upturned schooner revealed no trace of the 11 sailors who were part of the crew, and their bodies were never recovered. The yawl, which is a small boat typically carried aboard larger vessels, was also missing. No one knows what happened. Following the discovery of the overturned Rosabelle, a search and rescue operation was initiated. However, it was futile, as no survivors or bodies were ever found. The ship was towed into the Racine Harbor and was later purchased by H&M Body Corporation, who salvaged its lumber. To do so, they beached the ship north of Racine. Because of the mysteriousness of the incident, there are lots of theories and speculations about what happened. One of the initial hypotheses was that the Rosabelle collided with another vessel amidst the storm's chaos, causing her to capsize. However, the Coast Guard investigation ruled out the possibility of a collision, mostly because the wreckage they found of the Rosabelle was reportedly largely intact. Obviously, a collision with another vessel would have caused more damage. And also, there were no reports of any other vessels encountering difficulties or being involved in collision in the area. The prevailing theory was that the intensity of the storm overwhelmed the Rosabelle, leading to it capsizing and the crew being swept away by the raging waters. This is a certainly plausible scenario, and I think probably the most likely scenario. The lack of any bodies ever being recovered fueled the mystery, as well as the missing yawl. Did the crew attempt to escape the sinking ship on the small boat, only to be overwhelmed by the storm? Or was it simply torn away by the force of the waves? The disappearance of Northwest Airlines Flight 2501. On June 23, 1950, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501, which was a Douglas DC-4 prop liner, vanished without a trace over the Lake Michigan Triangle. The aircraft was going under its daily route from New York to Seattle, carrying 55 passengers and 3 crew members. Flight 2501 is the only large commercial aircraft in U.S. history to go missing, and the loss of 58 people on board made it the deadliest commercial airliner accident in America at the time, and is one of the most bizarre unsolved mysteries in aviation history. Flight 2501 departed LaGuardia Airport in New York City at 7:30 p.m. Eastern with scheduled stops in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Spokane, Washington, before continuing on to Seattle. The flight was flown by Captain Robert C. Lind, an experienced pilot with over 9,000 flight hours. First Officer Vern F. Wilf and Stewardess Bonnie Ann Feldman were the other members of the crew. The passengers included 27 women, 22 men, and 6 children. The aircraft, a Douglas DC-4, was originally manufactured in 1943 for the U.S. Air Force, and it was later used in a Venezuelan postal operation before being acquired by Northwest in 1947. It was initially used for cargo service, but it was converted into a 55-passenger cargo coach aircraft just 1 month before the accident. One passenger supposedly nearly missed the flight arriving just as the cabin door was being closed. After allowing him to board, stewardess Feldman distributed pieces of Wrigley's Double Mint chewing gum to the passengers before takeoff. Should have been Mentos, right? The fresh maker. And they could have, I don't know, not disappeared, right? As the flight approached Lake Michigan, the weather became worse, and at 11:13 p.m., Captain Lynn requested permission to descend from 3,500 feet to 2,500 feet due to turbulence. Air traffic control denied this request due to other aircraft in the area, and this was the last communication received from Flight 2501. When Flight 2501 failed to arrive in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Northwest Radio and the Civil Aeronautics Administration, the CAA, attempted to contact the aircraft, but their efforts were not successful. Air traffic control alerted air-sea rescue facilities to stand by. By dawn, it was clear that Flight 2501 had gone down, likely in Lake Michigan. Search and rescue operations were initiated, involving the U.S. Navy, U.S. Coast Guard, and the state police from Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Indiana. They had everybody. An oil slick was spotted near Milwaukee, so the authorities believe the crash may have occurred there. However, a commercial fisherman encountered a large debris field off South Haven, Michigan, shifting the focus of the search to there. The Coast Guard and Navy began recovering floating debris, while state and city authorities recovered debris that washed ashore. The Navy also commenced searching for submerged wreckage. The Michigan Shipwreck Research Association has been conducting annual searches for Flight 2501 since 2004. The main wreckage has never been found. The search efforts yielded an oil slick, light aircraft debris, and human remains. The debris field included a fuel tank float, seat cushions, luggage, and body parts. The small size of the debris and the presence of an electrical storm led to initial speculation that the plane may have twisted in high winds, causing a spark that ignited the fuel tanks. But because of the absence of a definitive wreckage site, it's been difficult to determine the cause of the crash. Some of the theories include the severe weather, as it was known that there was a presence of thunderstorms and turbulence over Lake Michigan at the time of the disappearance. There have been some eyewitness accounts of flashing lights in the sky that support the possibility of a mid-air breakup due to extreme turbulence or a lightning strike. Some have speculated that Captain Lynn may have made a navigational error or misjudged the severity of the weather leading to the crash. The theory is that he may have descended despite the initial denial of his request, putting the aircraft at risk of encountering severe weather conditions at a low altitude. It's also possible that a mechanical malfunction could have led to the crash and disappearance of Flight 2501. Another theory suggests that the aircraft may have encountered a microburst, a sudden downdraft that can force an aircraft down hundreds of feet without warning. Microbursts were not well known or understood in 1950, and pilots would have had limited options to recover from such an event at a low altitude. While these incidents and other incidents have associated the Lake Michigan Triangle with the paranormal, scientists, meteorologists, and geologists have offered alternative explanations for the incidents. Lake Michigan's unique geography and weather patterns can create hazardous conditions for both ships and aircraft. The lake's elongated shape with long, unobstructed shorelines can generate strong rip currents and unpredictable waves. These currents can capsize boats or sweep swimmers away from the shore. Lake Michigan is also known for its rapidly changing weather patterns, with sudden storms and dense fog that can disorient even experienced navigators. Meteorologists have observed a wild weather phenomenon over Lake Michigan where cold Canadian whirlwinds, known as mesovortices, create swirling snow bands and contribute to lake effect snow. The lake's cold water temperatures, especially during the winter months, can lead to hypothermia, reducing survival time for those who end up in the water. Lake Michigan also has some unusual geological features that could play a role in the Lake Michigan Triangle mysteries. It has underwater craters, vast, round craters ranging from 300 to 600 feet and nearly 40 feet deep. The origin and potential impact of these craters on lake currents and navigations are still unknown. Lake Michigan also holds other intriguing features, including submerged cars, boats, a Civil War pier, and even a stone circle near Beaver Island. These findings suggest a dynamic and complex underwater environment that may contribute to the disappearance of wreckage or the creation of unusual currents. These scientific explanations provide a rational framework for understanding the Lake Michigan Triangle. However, there are historical and cultural beliefs associated with the region as well. The area surrounding Lake Michigan has a history of Native American legends and folklore that may offer alternative perspectives on the triangle's mysteries. The Potawatomi tribe had beliefs about spirits and water beings that could influence the lake's waters. These legends were passed through generations and may provide insights to the cultural and historical context of the Lake Michigan Triangle and offer alternative interpretations of the events that have unfolded within the lake. The Lake Michigan Triangle is often compared with the Bermuda Triangle, a region of the North Atlantic Ocean with a similar reputation for unexplained disappearances. While both areas have a triangular shape, there are key differences. The Bermuda Triangle is significantly larger, covering an area of over 500,000 square miles, whereas Lake Michigan Triangle is only 3,800 square miles. The Bermuda Triangle is located in the open ocean, and the Lake Michigan Triangle is situated within a freshwater lake surrounded by land. I too believe that the Lake Michigan Triangle and Bermuda Triangle are similar in that these are areas that just so happen to be well-traveled, and that is the reason for a lot of these disturbances and strange occurrences, which adds to the lore of the area. Now, an author, Jay Gorley, in his book, The Great Lakes Triangle, claims that the Great Lakes region has a higher concentration of unexplained disappearances per unit area than the Bermuda Triangle. Although this is a very difficult assertion to prove definitively. Regardless of what you believe about the Lake Michigan Triangle, it certainly has a spooky appeal, and the possibility of paranormal events and unexplained disappearances in this area is fascinating. This is particularly fascinating for people in the Midwest area or the Great Lakes region, as I don't know about you, but I have lived in this area my entire life, and I had never heard of the Lake Michigan Triangle until I started getting deeper and deeper into the paranormal and spooky stuff. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, The Spooky Lawyer. Make sure that you like and share this video. Go ahead and follow me on Blue Sky and TikTok. My username is AKBruce. Follow me on Twitter. My username is AKBruce. If there is a spooky or disturbing story you would like me to cover, send me an email, thespookylawyer@gmail.com. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you watching my video. And please, stay spooky.